Good morning. Welcome to today's symposium, Anxious Democracy, the First 100 Days of the Trump Presidency. My name is Larry Rosenthal. I'm the chair of the Berkeley Center for Right-Wing Studies. Thank you.
One of the few who's been on it for a long time. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
Why aren't you always on it? I mean, we're thinking because of the right wing.
This was not a plant. I have been running the center for 8 years. We opened our door a month after the launching of the Tea Party. We are the only research organization dedicated to the study of right-wing thought and movements at a major research university in the U.S. In 2010, we held a conference on the Tea Party, out of which came our book, Steep, The Precipitous Rise of the Tea Party. This established us as a go-to venue for media and other researchers who had inquiries on the Tea Party and other developments on the right. I can report to you that in all the years of being an expert resource on the Tea Party, the level of inquiry never came close to what we have been experiencing since the candidacy of Donald Trump, the emergence of the alt-right, and Trump's election. The ebb and flow of demands on our resources has turned into a tidal wave. Such is the urgency and the difficulty of trying to make sense of the Trump phenomenon. We are indeed living in an anxious democracy. The anxiety is widespread and international. A working group of faculty and graduate students in the center took on the task of putting together this one-day symposium and has labored with dedication to lay out the themes we will address, recruit speakers, and attend to the 10,000 details that bring us together today. I would like to take this opportunity to thank them. Ella Ben-Hagey, Alex DeBranco, Emily Bruce, Laura Jackley, Joseph Ledford, and Craig Johnson. And for absolutely critical, both intellectual and logistical support, let me thank as well Christine Trost and Cynthia Alvarez in the back. Further thanks go to today's co-sponsors. These include the Department of History, the Doreen B. Townsend Center for the Humanities, the Institute of Governmental Studies, the Haas Institute for a Fair and Inclusive Society, the Graduate School of Journalism, the Institute for the Study of Societal Issues, and a touch of housekeeping. Please turn off your cell phones.
Put the mic go up, please.
Pardon me?
Put the mic go up a little, please.
The sound.
Volume. Get closer.
Okay, is this any better? That will do? Okay.
Try again.
Is that me?
Speak some more.
A total weirdness. Well, so is this. So, okay.
That better?
Okay, is this better?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, to begin, let's borrow a phrase from our friends in Silicon Valley. American politics in 2016 experienced a disruptive event. The event was nationalism storming into the mainstream of American political life. This nationalism had lain in the fringes of American politics for decades, but in August 2016, its most conspicuous proponent, Steve Bannon, was elevated to the strategic center of the Republican presidential campaign. And in January, he was installed in Karl Rove's seat in the White House. Popularized as the alt-right, Bannon's nationalism is a new right-wing extremism at the level of national politics in America. Ideologically, it consists of a novel collage of beliefs. It is anti-immigrant and anti-immigration. It is anti-free trade and free trade agreements. It rejects the major international institutions of the now 70-year-old post-World War II international arrangements. And in this, it is part of an international movement, often referred to as illiberal democracy, a zeitgeist that spiked in the Brexit vote and has appeared across the European landscape. And one finds it in Putin's Russia, Modi's India, Duterte's Philippines, Erdogan's Turkey, and elsewhere. But there's more to what Bannon sometimes calls populist nationalism and sometimes calls economic nationalism. It has a chilling racial dimension. The touchstone of the alt-right is the conviction that the liberal order has dispossessed whites in America. The movement contains white nationalists, white supremacists, white separatists, and Nazi anti-Semites. Richard Spencer gave the alt-right its name, and he has become a widely covered political figure. He had some observations on the movement after last Saturday's demonstration here in Berkeley that provoked street fighting and national coverage. What he had to say went to the heart of the movement's raison d'etre. I'm quoting, "While white dispossession is so real, it is so obvious, it's just something that one can't ignore, that a reaction had to occur, and it was only a question of how or when, and it wasn't a question of whether," unquote. And the alt-right is not going away. There is no putting the genie back in the bottle. This is true, if for no other reason, than the movement's media presence. The alt-right is the spawn of social media in much the same way as Fox News was the spawn of cable television. Breitbart News, where Bannon was chief, is the second most highly visited U.S. political website after the Huffington Post. The alt-right has committed financial backing, most notably through Robert Mercer and his daughter Rebecca, and has solid footing not only on the internet but in film and book publishing. The alt-right dominated the Trump campaign's political narrative after Bannon's appointment in August. It was the ideological voice that crafted Trump's America First / Carnage inaugural address. It was the thinking behind the executive orders that attempted to ban entry from Muslim-majority countries. It was the strategy of putting Jefferson Beauregard Sessions at the head of the Justice Department. And then, 2 months into the Trump presidency, came the failure of the AHCA, the long-promised repeal and replacement of Obamacare. And what seemed on January 20th to be the definitive voice of the new administration, Bannon nationalism, was thrown into question. Suddenly, we found ourselves thrust back into an older political narrative. This was the narrative that had dominated analysis of the Republican Party in recent years and continued to do so until Donald Trump clinched the party's nomination in June of 2016. That narrative often went by the name the Republican Civil War. In the Obama years, the Republican Civil War pitted the Republican establishment, the powers that produced the nomination of John McCain and Mitt Romney against the Tea Party. You remember the Tea Party? It was essentially a coalition of the Republican populist base and extreme free market conservatism, what I like to call the free market absolutists. Trump's candidacy for the nomination split the Tea Party, ending its run as a unified force of free market absolutists and the populists. Tea Party populists seemed to shed their loyalty to free market absolutism fairly easily, and they migrated en masse to Trump. The free market absolutists are the heirs of the corporate reaction of the New Deal to the New Deal of the 1930s. They still have the goal of rolling back Medicare, Social Security, the rights of labor unions, and the government regulation of the economy. This was the Koch brothers' wing of the Tea Party. And in the words of the British newspaper, The Independent, the Koch brothers led the billionaire resistance to Donald Trump. The most significant formation of free market absolutists in Washington today is the Tea Party spin-off, the Freedom Caucus, in the House of Representatives. And it was their opposition to the AHCA which finally doomed it. In words that have echoed in free market absolutist rhetoric since 1936, one Freedom Caucus member, Mo Brooks of Texas, described the AHCA as follows. It was the largest welfare program that Republicans have sponsored in the history of the Republican Party. And as such, it's going to undermine the work ethic, it's going to increase taxes, and it's going to increase the deficit, which in turn is going to increase our risk of suffering from a debilitating insolvency and bankruptcy. Perhaps the biggest beneficiary of the diminished fortunes of the nationalists has been the Republican establishment. While alt-right media has been scathing about the administration's bombing in Syria and Afghanistan, its rapprochement with China, and changing its tune about Russia and NATO, the mainstream press has been tracking the waxing of Jared Kushner's influence in the White House and the waning of Stephen Bannon's. Kushner seems to be in charge of everything except plumbing problems in the White House. There are a couple of other influences at play in the first 100 days of the Trump administration. Many American progressives, perhaps many in this room, find themselves in the ironic position of feeling relieved that ex-generals, Mattis and McMaster, who have been chastened by their experiences in Iraq and Afghanistan, have been giving increasing power to determine the administration's military policy. The final player, of course, is none other than the president himself. This is a president who, as a personality, seems so off, so abnormal, that all other presidents could go into one category and he into a category all his own. He is vulgar, he is an authoritarian. He has conflicts of interest unrivaled in advanced Western democracies, with the possible exception of Italy's Silvio Berlusconi. Ideologically, he seems to have only meager long-term convictions, admiration for strongman rule, and Nixonian law and order. For the rest, instead of ideological markers that we might count on to guide us through Trumpian policy, we get instead improvisation. In a 1990 interview with Playboy magazine, Trump was asked, "Is there a master plan to your deal making, or is it all improvisational?" He answered, and this was his emphasis, "It's much more improvisational than people might think." So too is his presidency. What we have then, finally, is a sketch of the Dramatis Personae, of the first 100 days. We have two extreme right-wing ideologies, ethnic nationalism and free market absolutism. We have the Reagan-esque orthodoxy of the Republican establishment. We have a military voice in a uniquely prominent position in the determination of foreign policy. And we have a president who is above all an improviser. In the question of the old Disney novelty song, put them together and what do you got? And that, of course, brings us to today's symposium. I have been frankly delighted at the excellence of the speakers who have very kindly agreed to offer their expertise in the unprecedented task of making sense of the Trump government and the unique and anxious political moment we are living through. We have divided the day's work into 3 panels. The first will consider the urgent constitutional questions Trump's government and policies have raised. The second panel will deal with some of the most pressing issues of domestic policy. And the third panel will take up foreign policy. Disney's answer to the question of put them together and what have you got, you may remember, was bibbidi bobbidi boo. In a moment of anxious democracy, we do not have the luxury of magical thinking. For this reason, I am very much looking forward to the day's proceedings, and I thank you all for being here.